You walk alone through a forest at dusk. No companions, no guides. Just you and the deepening shadows between ancient trees. Suddenly, without warning, a chill races across your skin. The hair on your arms rises. Your heart accelerates before your conscious mind has registered anything amiss. You freeze mid-step, scanning the environment, not knowing why. Nothing visible threatens you. Nothing audible warns you. Yet something primitive inside you has already decided. Danger lurks nearby. What just happened? Science would call this a threat detection response, an unconscious survival mechanism hardwired into your nervous system. But the true answer reaches much deeper, stretching back through hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary history. That inexplicable feeling represents one of dozens of hidden senses you possess. Ancient biological equipment operating beneath the surface of your awareness every moment of your life. We have been taught since childhood that humans possess 5 basic senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. This comfortable fiction, attributed to Aristotle, has persisted for over 2 millennia. But modern neuroscience reveals a far more extraordinary truth. Humans possess not 5, but potentially more than 30 distinct sensory systems, many operating completely outside our conscious awareness. These hidden senses form an intricate detection network that continuously monitors both our external environment and internal bodily states. They represent the unacknowledged foundation of human experience, and many contain surprising powers we never knew we had. Dr. Lydia Brenner, neurophysiologist at Stanford University, puts it bluntly: the 5 senses model is not just incomplete, it is fundamentally misleading about how humans perceive reality. We are walking sensor arrays of incredible sophistication, carrying perceptual equipment that evolved across the entire vertebrate lineage. Most people live their entire lives without understanding the full range of their sensory capabilities. Consider this paradox. How can you tell, with your eyes closed, whether your arm is stretched out or bent at the elbow? Nothing touches your skin differently. No visual information helps you. Yet you know instantly. This sense of body position, proprioception, represents just one of many secret senses operating below the threshold of your everyday awareness. Or consider another mystery. Why do certain places feel instantly threatening while others induce calm, even when visually similar? Why do we sometimes know we are being watched without seeing anyone? And perhaps most puzzling, how do some people sense an impending natural disaster hours or even days before it occurs? The answers lie in understanding that we are not just modern humans but living archives of evolutionary adaptations, carrying within us sensory systems developed across millions of years of survival challenges, from our earliest vertebrate ancestors through to primates swinging through Paleolithic forests. This is not speculation. This is documented neuroscience. And the story begins not with humans at all, but with a simple ocean-dwelling creature that lived over 520 million years ago. The Cambrian explosion, approximately 541 million years ago, represents a critical turning point in the evolution of sensory systems. During this period, complex multicellular organisms rapidly diversified, and with this diversification came the development of the first specialized sensory organs. The earliest vertebrates needed to detect prey, avoid predators, and navigate their environment, explains Dr. Christopher Blackwell, evolutionary biologist at the University of Washington. These fundamental survival requirements drove the evolution of sensory capabilities that we still carry within us today. Our most ancient sensory systems evolved in water. The lateral line system in fish, a series of sensory cells running along their sides, detects minute water movements and pressure changes. While humans no longer possess this exact system, neuroscientists have identified evolutionary derivatives that allow us to sense air pressure changes and potentially even electromagnetic fluctuations. As vertebrates moved from water to land approximately 375 million years ago, these sensory systems adapted to new environmental challenges. The transition fundamentally transformed how organisms interacted with their environment, requiring new ways to detect threats, locate food, and find mates in a dramatically different medium. Dr. Elena Martinez, paleobiologist at the University of Chicago, explains, when our ancestors left the oceans, they didn't abandon their sensory adaptations, they repurposed them. Many of our most mysterious sensory capabilities represent ancient aquatic detection systems that were modified for terrestrial life. The mammalian evolutionary journey introduced another layer of sensory complexity. Early mammals, emerging approximately 200 million years ago, were primarily nocturnal creatures hiding from dinosaur predators. This nocturnal phase, lasting more than 100 million years, profoundly shaped our sensory heritage. Most people don't realize that mammals spent the majority of their evolutionary history as small, night-dwelling creatures, notes Dr. Blackwell. This extended period of nocturnal adaptation left an indelible mark on our sensory systems. Many of our mysterious senses actually make perfect sense when you consider they evolved in creatures that couldn't rely on vision as their primary sense. This evolutionary history explains why humans possess such sophisticated non-visual sensory capabilities, abilities that often operate beneath our conscious awareness. Our ancestors needed to detect threats in darkness, navigate without clear visual references, and sense environmental changes that might signal danger. The primate branch of the mammalian family tree introduced yet another sensory shift approximately 65 million years ago. As early primates adapted to arboreal life in trees, they developed enhanced visual systems, particularly color vision and depth perception, while retaining many of the sensitive detection mechanisms from their mammalian ancestors. When you startle at an unexpected sound while walking alone, when the hair rises on your neck for seemingly no reason, you're experiencing the activation of ancient threat detection systems that long predate human consciousness, explains Dr. Brenner. Your body often knows something is wrong before your conscious mind has processed the information. This evolutionary sensory layering means that humans possess a remarkable range of perceptual abilities, some obvious and conscious, others subtle and largely unconscious. From detecting microscopic skin temperature changes to sensing the Earth's magnetic field, our sensory capabilities extend far beyond the traditional five-sense model. The question then becomes, what exactly are these hidden senses, and how do they influence our daily lives? Let us begin with the sensory systems that operate just below the threshold of common awareness, capabilities acknowledged by science but rarely discussed in everyday contexts. Proprioception, your body's awareness of its position in space, represents perhaps the most frequently utilized yet seldom acknowledged sense. This system relies on specialized receptors in your muscles, joints, and tendons that continuously relay positional information to your brain. Without looking, you can touch your nose with your finger precisely because of proprioception. Proprioception is actually one of our most sophisticated sensory systems, explains Dr. Sarah Whitman, neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins University. It involves multiple receptor types working in concert to create a detailed three-dimensional body map in your brain. Without it, even simple actions like walking would require intense visual concentration. This sense becomes particularly evident when it malfunctions. Patients with certain neurological conditions experience proprioceptive loss, requiring them to visually monitor their limbs to perform basic movements. The famous neurologist Oliver Sacks documented a case in his book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, of a woman who lost her proprioception and described her body as feeling dead, despite retaining the ability to feel touch. Closely related to proprioception is vestibular sense, your internal detection system for balance, spatial orientation, and movement. Located in the inner ear, the vestibular system includes fluid-filled canals that act as biological accelerometers and gyroscopes, continuously informing your brain about head position and movement. The vestibular system operates constantly below conscious awareness, notes Dr. Brenner. Yet it shapes your entire perceptual experience, automatically stabilizing your visual field as you move and maintaining your sense of up versus down. Without it, the world would appear to bounce and spin chaotically with every head movement. Equally sophisticated but rarely acknowledged is interoception, your perception of internal bodily states. Specialized receptors throughout your organs and tissues monitor variables like blood carbon dioxide levels, stomach distension, bladder fullness, and internal temperature, creating what neuroscientists call gut feelings that profoundly influence decision-making and emotional states. A 2019 study at the University of Cambridge found that people with stronger interoceptive awareness, the ability to accurately detect their own heartbeats without touching their chest, demonstrated better intuitive decision-making in complex situations. This suggests that many hunches and intuitions have a physiological basis in this internal monitoring system. When people talk about having a gut feeling about something, they're not speaking metaphorically, explains Dr. Anita Chun, neurogastroenterologist at UCLA. The enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain, contains over 100 million neurons in the digestive tract alone and communicates bidirectionally with the brain, influencing cognition and decision-making in ways we're only beginning to understand. Beyond these well-documented systems lie sensory capabilities that border on the extraordinary. Humans possess dedicated receptors for detecting magnetic fields, atmospheric pressure changes, and possibly even infrared radiation, capabilities that connect us to our evolutionary past in surprising ways. Consider magnetoreception, the ability to detect Earth's magnetic field. While once thought to exist only in certain animals like birds and sea turtles, recent research suggests humans retain a vestigial form of the sense, potentially influencing our subconscious navigational abilities and circadian rhythms. A groundbreaking 2019 study published in eNeuro found that human brain waves show distinctive patterns in response to changes in magnetic field direction, even though participants reported no conscious awareness of these changes. The researchers identified specific neural oscillations that respond to geomagnetic stimuli, suggesting humans possess functional magnetoreceptive machinery. This research fundamentally challenges our understanding of human sensory capabilities, notes Dr. James Kirby, one of the study's co-authors. We're detecting a sensory input that most people don't realize they possess. It raises profound questions about other subtle environmental signals our brains might be processing without our awareness. Similarly intriguing is chronoception, your internal sense of time passing. Unlike the regular circadian rhythm that tracks day and night cycles, chronoception operates on much shorter timescales, allowing you to estimate the passage of seconds and minutes with surprising accuracy, even without external timepieces. This time sense varies dramatically between individuals and can be altered by emotional states, body temperature, and certain drugs. During life-threatening situations, many people report experiencing a dramatic slowing of perceived time, a phenomenon researchers attribute to hyperactivation of the amygdala, which enhances memory encoding during dangerous events. What's fascinating about chronoception is that it demonstrates how flexible our perception of reality truly is, explains Dr. Lisa Parrish, cognitive neuroscientist at NYU. Your brain doesn't passively record time like a clock. It actively constructs your experience of duration based on attention, arousal, and environmental context. 2 minutes can literally feel like 20 depending on your brain's interpretive framework. Even more remarkable is thermoception, not just the ability to feel hot and cold through touch, but the capacity to detect infrared radiation, heat at a distance. Specialized receptors called TRPM8 and TRPV1 in human skin can detect temperature changes as small as 0.003 degrees Celsius. Sensitivity that allows humans to feel the body heat of nearby organisms, even in complete darkness. This distant heat detection capability would have been crucial for our nocturnal mammalian ancestors, notes Dr. Blackwell. The ability to detect the body heat of a nearby predator or prey without physical contact provided a significant survival advantage in low-light conditions. These expanded sensory capabilities represent just the beginning of our hidden perceptual equipment. As we explore deeper into human sensory potential, we encounter abilities that seem almost supernatural, yet have solid grounding in evolutionary neuroscience. Perhaps the most controversial yet scientifically fascinating area of human perception involves what researchers call unconscious sensing, the detection of environmental stimuli that never reaches conscious awareness, yet demonstrably influences behavior and decision-making. The concept gains scientific legitimacy through experiments on blind sight, a condition where people with damage to the primary visual cortex claim they cannot see anything in certain parts of their visual field, yet can accurately guess the location, movement, and sometimes even color of objects presented there. Blind sight patients give us a fascinating window into unconscious visual processing, explains Dr. Michael Ramsey, neuropsychologist at Oxford University. When asked to point to a stimulus they claim they cannot see, many can do so with remarkable accuracy while insisting they're merely guessing. This demonstrates that visual information is being processed through alternative neural pathways that bypass conscious awareness. This phenomenon extends beyond clinical cases into everyday perception. Multiple studies have shown that humans unconsciously register environmental changes and potential threats before becoming consciously aware of them. Your brain constantly performs what neuroscientists call pre-attentive processing, scanning the environment for patterns that might signal danger, opportunity, or important social information. A landmark study at Northwestern University in 2014 demonstrated that the human brain registers and emotionally evaluates faces shown for as little as 4 milliseconds, far too brief for conscious perception. Participants showed distinctive brain activity patterns and physiological responses to fearful versus neutral faces they never consciously saw. What's remarkable about these findings is that they challenge our fundamental understanding of consciousness, notes Dr. Brenner. Your brain is constantly monitoring and evaluating your environment, making judgments and decisions that never reach your conscious mind. This raises profound questions about how much of our behavior and feelings are influenced by information we never knowingly perceive. This unconscious perception extends to social domains as well. Humans demonstrate an uncanny ability to detect deception, emotional states, and even health conditions in others through subtle cues they cannot consciously articulate. Research at Tufts University found that participants could identify photographs of liars and truth-tellers with above-chance accuracy after seeing their faces for just 100 milliseconds. When asked to explain their decisions, participants could not identify the specific cues they used. Yet their brain had clearly detected something meaningful. We're constantly reading microscopic facial muscle movements, voice fluctuations, pupil dilations, and other subtle signals that indicate others' emotional and mental states, explains Dr. Thomas Reynolds, social neuropsychologist at UCLA. Most of this processing happens outside awareness, yet significantly influences who we trust, who we're attracted to, and how we navigate social situations. Perhaps most intriguing is the documented phenomenon of danger sense, the capacity to detect threats before any obvious sensory cue is present. Numerous accounts exist of individuals suddenly feeling compelled to leave an area shortly before a disaster occurs, or experiencing inexplicable anxiety that later proves justified by actual danger. While often dismissed as confirmation bias or selective memory, research suggests these experiences may have a neurobiological basis in what's called predictive processing. Your brain constantly generates models of what should happen next based on past experience and subtle environmental patterns. When something violates these predictions, even in ways too subtle for conscious recognition, it can trigger anxiety or avoidance behavior. The human nervous system is exquisitely sensitive to pattern violations, explains Dr. Brenner. You might walk the same route home every day and subconsciously register thousands of environmental details. If something changes, even something you cannot consciously identify, your brain detects the anomaly and signals potential danger. A fascinating example comes from interviews with survivors of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Multiple individuals reported feeling inexplicably compelled to leave beach areas before any visible signs of the tsunami appeared. Some described sensing unusual vibrations, pressure changes, or simply something wrong that prompted their life-saving decisions. Seismologists later confirmed that the earthquake preceding the tsunami generated infrasound waves, sound frequencies below human hearing threshold, that propagated faster than the tsunami itself. These infrasound waves can trigger physiological responses through specialized mechanoreceptors in the human body, potentially explaining the sixth sense that saved numerous lives. We have strong evidence that humans can unconsciously detect infrasound, electromagnetic field changes, and subtle atmospheric pressure fluctuations that often precede natural disasters, notes Dr. Victor Nguyen, geophysicist at the California Institute of Technology. While people cannot consciously hear or see these signals, their bodies register them, potentially triggering the inexplicable anxiety or urge to flee that many disaster survivors report. This unconscious threat detection system doesn't just apply to natural disasters. Studies of combat veterans and law enforcement officers have documented cases of anomaly detection, unconsciously noticing environmental details that signal danger before conscious awareness catches up. Army Staff Sergeant Craig Barnes describes an experience from his deployment in Afghanistan. Something made me halt the patrol and change our route. I couldn't explain why, just felt wrong. We later learned an IED had been placed along our original path. My conscious mind didn't spot anything unusual, but something in me registered a threat. Neuroscientists believe such experiences represent the brain's pattern recognition systems detecting subtle inconsistencies, disturbed dust, unusual object placements, or microscopic changes in human behavior that violate expected norms. While the conscious mind doesn't register these details individually, the unconscious processing system flags the collective anomaly as potentially dangerous. What's fascinating about these cases is that they demonstrate how the division between conscious and unconscious perception isn't nearly as clear as we once believed, explains Dr. Parrish. Much of what we attribute to intuition or gut feeling actually represents sophisticated neural processing of environmental information that occurs beneath the threshold of awareness. This research suggests that many seemingly supernatural abilities, premonitions, hunches, or inexplicable aversions may actually represent the activity of evolutionary sensory systems operating outside conscious awareness. But these unconscious perceptual abilities represent just one facet of our hidden sensory heritage. The story extends further into realms that challenge our fundamental understanding of human perception. Of all our sensory systems, none has been more dramatically downgraded in human self-perception than smell. Modern humans tend to view olfaction as vestigial, a primitive sense far less important than vision or hearing. This represents perhaps the most significant misconception in how we understand our own sensory capabilities. Humans are actually remarkably sensitive smellers, explains Dr. Leslie Bradford, olfactory neuroscientist at the University of Pennsylvania. The myth that we have a poor sense of smell compared to other mammals is simply not supported by the evidence. We possess approximately 400 types of functional olfactory receptors and can distinguish between more than 1 trillion different scent combinations, far more than our color vision system can differentiate. This olfactory capacity operates largely beneath conscious awareness, continuously analyzing our chemical environment for threats, food sources, and social information. Research has demonstrated that humans can detect certain compounds at concentrations as low as a few parts per trillion, equivalent to detecting a drop of perfume in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. What makes our olfactory system particularly fascinating is its direct connection to brain regions governing emotion and memory. Unlike other sensory inputs that are routed through the thalamus, olfactory information travels directly to the amygdala and hippocampus, structures involved in emotional processing and memory formation. This explains why scents can trigger powerful emotional responses and detailed memories without conscious effort. The integration of smell with our emotional and memory systems isn't accidental, notes Dr. Bradford. It represents an ancient survival mechanism. For our evolutionary ancestors, determining whether a smell signaled danger, food, or a potential mate required immediate emotional evaluation and memory recall. There was no time for extensive conscious deliberation. This chemical detection system extends beyond what we conventionally define as smell. Humans possess a secondary olfactory system called the vomeronasal organ, VNO, that, while vestigial in form compared to other mammals, still shows evidence of functionality in many people. This system specializes in detecting non-volatile chemical signals, particularly those involved in social and reproductive behaviors. The most controversial aspect of human chemoreception involves pheromones, chemical signals that influence the behavior of others within the same species. While pheromonal communication is well established in other mammals, its role in humans remains disputed. However, growing evidence suggests humans do respond physiologically to certain chemical compounds released by other humans, even without consciously detecting any odor. A landmark study at the University of Chicago found that women who lived together in dormitories often synchronized their menstrual cycles over time. Subsequent research identified compounds in female underarm secretions that, when applied to the upper lips of other women, who could not detect any smell, altered their menstrual timing. This suggested unconscious chemical communication between female bodies. Similarly intriguing is the sweaty t-shirt study, conducted at the University of Bern in 1995. Women consistently preferred the scent of t-shirts worn by men with immune system genetics different from their own, a preference that would promote offspring with stronger immune systems. Remarkably, the women could not explain their preferences and did not consciously detect meaningful differences between the shirts. What's fascinating about these chemical communication studies is that they suggest humans are exchanging meaningful biological information completely outside conscious awareness, explains Dr. Bradford. Your body might be making important mating decisions based on olfactory information your conscious mind never registers. Perhaps most surprising is research into fear chemosignaling, the unconscious detection of chemical compounds released by others experiencing stress or fear. Multiple studies have shown that the scent of sweat from scared individuals triggers heightened alertness and altered brain activity in people exposed to it, even when they cannot consciously detect any odor difference between fear sweat and normal sweat. A 2012 study published in Psychological Science demonstrated that exposure to imperceptible amounts of fear sweat enhanced participants' ability to identify threatening faces in ambiguous photographs. Their conscious minds never registered any smell, yet their threat detection systems were measurably influenced by the chemical signals. This research suggests that emotional states are not just psychological but also chemical events, notes Dr. Reynolds. When someone near you experiences fear, your brain may detect chemical signals that put you on alert without you ever knowing why you suddenly feel uneasy. This represents a sophisticated unconscious communication system operating alongside our verbal and visual social exchanges. The implications extend beyond fear to other emotional states. Studies have found evidence that humans can detect chemical signals related to happiness, sadness, and sexual arousal in others, potentially explaining some aspects of emotional contagion and interpersonal chemistry that have long puzzled psychologists. Think about times you've instantly liked or disliked someone without knowing why, suggests Dr. Brenner. While many factors influence these immediate impressions, chemical communication likely plays a significant role. Your brain is processing olfactory information about their immune system compatibility, stress levels, and other biological factors that never reach conscious awareness. This chemical detection system also explains certain human behaviors that otherwise seem puzzling. The universal behavior of parents smelling their infants, often described as simply enjoying their scent, actually represents an ancient mammalian bonding and health assessment behavior. Subtle changes in a baby's scent can indicate illness before other symptoms appear, triggering parental concern before conscious detection of any problem. When a parent says their child smells wrong during early stages of illness, They're not being superstitious, explains Dr. Chun. They're detecting subtle changes in volatile organic compounds released through the skin that signal immune system activation. This represents a sophisticated disease detection system operating beneath conscious awareness. Our chemical detection abilities extend beyond social realms to environmental threats. Humans can detect certain bacterial and fungal volatile compounds at concentrations below 1 part per trillion, a sensitivity that allows unconscious avoidance of contaminated food or environments before visible signs of spoilage appear. The sensitivity of human olfaction for certain microbial compounds is truly extraordinary, notes Dr. Blackwell. While you might not consciously recognize why certain foods or places seem unappetizing, your olfactory system is often detecting microscopic levels of compounds that signal potential illness. This capability would have been critical for survival throughout our evolutionary history. The rediscovery of human olfactory sophistication fundamentally changes how we understand our sensory relationship with the world. Far from being diminished in humans, chemical sensing represents one of our most sensitive and sophisticated perceptual systems, one that operates largely beneath the surface of awareness while continuously influencing our behavior, emotions, and social interactions. Beyond detecting our immediate environment, humans possess remarkable systems for tracking time and synchronizing with natural cycles, abilities that connect us to cosmic rhythms in ways most people never consciously recognize. The most obvious of these timing systems is our circadian rhythm, the approximately 24-hour cycle that regulates sleep, hormone release, body temperature, and numerous other physiological processes. What's less appreciated is how this internal clock synchronizes with environmental signals through specialized light-sensitive cells in our retinas that have nothing to do with vision. These intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells contain a photopigment called melanopsin that specifically detects blue light wavelengths, explains Dr. Robert Jenkins, chronobiologist at the University of Michigan. They don't contribute to visual images but instead send signals directly to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock, to synchronize your internal timing with the external day-night cycle. This non-visual photoreception system explains why blind individuals with intact retinas often maintain normal circadian rhythms despite having no visual perception. Their image-forming visual pathways are damaged, but their circadian photoreception system continues functioning normally. What's particularly fascinating about this system is its sensitivity. Research has shown that even brief exposure to blue light, especially from electronic devices, during evening hours can significantly disrupt melatonin production and sleep patterns. Your body is constantly monitoring ambient light conditions through a separate sensory channel operating completely outside visual awareness. Beyond daily rhythms, humans maintain numerous other biological timing systems, including monthly cycles and seasonal variations that track longer environmental patterns. Women's menstrual cycles, averaging approximately 28 days, roughly correspond to the lunar cycle, a synchronization pattern observed in many marine organisms whose reproduction coordinates with tidal patterns. While the exact relationship between lunar cycles and human physiology remains debated, multiple studies have found correlations between moon phases and human sleep patterns, cortisol levels, and birth timing, notes Dr. Brenner. These relationships suggest our bodies maintain timing systems attuned to cosmic rhythms beyond the simple day-night cycle. Seasonal affective disorder, SAD, provides another example of how humans unconsciously track environmental cycles. The condition, characterized by mood changes correlating with seasonal light variations, demonstrates that our neurological and endocrine systems remain exquisitely sensitive to annual light patterns, a capability that would have been crucial for our ancestors preparing for seasonal changes. Humans evolved in environments where anticipating seasonal changes was critical for survival, explains Dr. Jenkins. Our bodies track day length changes through melatonin duration, which triggers cascading hormonal shifts that influence metabolism, immune function, and reproductive readiness. Most people experience subtle seasonal variations in these systems without ever realizing it. Even more intriguing is research suggesting humans possess sensitivity to other geophysical cycles, including changes in Earth's geomagnetic field. Multiple studies have found correlations between geomagnetic storm activity and alterations in human cardiovascular function, melatonin levels, and psychiatric hospital admissions. A comprehensive analysis published in Nature Scientific Reports in 2017 examined data from several countries and found statistically significant relationships between geomagnetic fluctuations and human health parameters, particularly cardiovascular events. The researchers proposed that these correlations reflect human sensitivity to changes in Earth's magnetic environment, a capability that connects us to planetary rhythms in ways modern humans rarely acknowledge. We've documented clear physiological responses to geomagnetic storms in human subjects under controlled laboratory conditions, notes Dr. Nguyen. Even when participants have no conscious awareness of field changes, their heart rate variability, melatonin production, and certain brainwave patterns show measurable alterations during geomagnetic disturbances. This sensitivity may explain historical observations of certain individuals who appear capable of predicting earthquakes or other seismic events hours or days before they occur. Seismic activity often generates disturbances in the local electromagnetic field and releases charged particles that create distinct atmospheric conditions, changes that some humans may unconsciously detect. What's particularly fascinating about these temporal sensing systems is how they demonstrate that humans remain fundamentally connected to cosmic and planetary rhythms despite our modern lifestyles, explains Dr. Blackwell. We are not separate from these natural cycles but embedded within them, with our physiology continuously responding to subtle environmental fluctuations most people never consciously notice. These biological timing systems represent sophisticated adaptations that allowed our ancestors to anticipate environmental changes and prepare accordingly. They form part of what anthropologists call time sense, the ability to track multiple temporal patterns simultaneously and project future conditions based on subtle environmental cues. Indigenous cultures often demonstrate remarkable timing precision without mechanical clocks, notes Dr. Martinez. Many can predict seasonal transitions, animal migrations, and even weather patterns through carefully cultivated attention to subtle environmental changes that most modern humans have learned to ignore. This capacity for temporal awareness extends to unconscious interval timing, your brain's ability to track and predict rhythmic patterns with astonishing precision. Studies have shown that humans can synchronize movements with musical beats with accuracy down to milliseconds, even matching tempo changes without conscious calculation. What we call groove in music, that compelling sense of rhythmic prediction that makes you want to move, represents your brain's predictive timing system in action, explains Dr. Parrish. This system operates largely outside consciousness yet influences everything from speech comprehension to coordinated movement to social synchronization. These discoveries about human temporal sensing capabilities fundamentally challenge how we understand our relationship with time. Rather than experiencing time as a simple linear progression measured by clocks, our bodies maintain multiple biological oscillators synchronized with environmental rhythms ranging from milliseconds to seasons, connections that link us to cosmic patterns in ways most people never consciously recognize. Perhaps the most sophisticated and least understood of our hidden sensory systems involves our extraordinary capacity to detect and interpret signals from other humans, abilities that far exceed our conscious social awareness. Humans possess specialized neural systems dedicated exclusively to processing facial expressions, vocal tones, body language, and other social signals. The superior temporal sulcus, fusiform face area, and mirror neuron system represent just some of the specialized neural architecture dedicated to social perception. What's remarkable about human social perception is both its speed and its sophistication, explains Dr. Reynolds. Your brain can detect and categorize a facial expression in less than 100 milliseconds, faster than conscious recognition, and extract emotional information from vocal tones within the first 200 milliseconds of hearing someone speak. This rapid social processing explains why first impressions form so quickly and prove so difficult to override. Multiple studies have shown that people make judgments about others' trustworthiness, competence, and potential threat level within the first tenth of a second of seeing their face, evaluations that occur before conscious thought can begin. These ultra-fast social judgments represent ancient survival adaptations, notes Dr. Brenner. For our ancestors, quickly determining whether a stranger intended harm or help could be a life or death matter. That system still operates in modern humans, continuously scanning other people for signs of potential threat or cooperation. What's particularly fascinating about this social perception system is its sensitivity to signals most people never consciously notice. Humans can detect pupil dilation changes of less than a millimeter in others' eyes, a capability that allows unconscious monitoring of others' interest, emotional arousal, and cognitive processing. When someone's pupils dilate while looking at you, your brain registers this as a sign of attention or attraction even if you never consciously notice the change. Similarly, microscopic facial muscle movements called microexpressions last just 1/15th to 1/25th of a second yet contain rich emotional information that influences your perception of others. Most people have had the experience of sensing someone is lying or hiding something despite their outwardly normal behavior, explains Dr. Parrish. Often this represents your detection of microexpressions, tiny facial muscle movements that briefly reveal suppressed emotions before the person regains control. Your conscious mind doesn't register these flickers, but your social perception system flags them as anomalies. Even more remarkable is our capacity for thin slicing, extracting accurate predictions about people's personality, sexual orientation, political affiliation, and even teaching ability from extremely brief behavioral samples. In a landmark study, participants watched silent 2-second video clips of teachers they'd never met and rated their effectiveness. These snap judgments significantly correlated with end-of-semester evaluations from students who had spent an entire semester with those same teachers. What's striking about thin slicing research is that it demonstrates how much social information we process unconsciously, notes Dr. Reynolds. Participants in these studies cannot explain which specific cues influence their judgments. They simply report gut feelings about the people they briefly observed. Yet these intuitive assessments often prove remarkably accurate when measured against objective criteria. This social detection system extends beyond visual cues to remarkable auditory sensitivity. Humans can detect emotional states from vocal qualities with just 400 milliseconds of speech, before any words can be comprehended. Studies show that even when listening to speech in an unknown foreign language, people can accurately identify emotional states from subtle tonal variations. The human voice contains dozens of paralinguistic features: rhythm, pitch variation, breathiness, vocal tension, that communicate emotional information independent of word meaning, explains Dr. Emily Torres, psycholinguist at Cornell University. Your brain processes these features through separate neural pathways from language comprehension, which is why you can instantly sense someone's emotional state even when you can't hear their exact words. Perhaps most fascinating is our capacity for unconscious bodily synchronization with others, what researchers call interpersonal physiological synchrony. Multiple studies have documented how humans automatically synchronize breathing patterns, heart rates, pupil dilations, and even brain waves during social interactions, especially between people with close relationships. A 2017 study published in Scientific Reports found that audience members' heart rates and brain activity synchronized during musical performances, with stronger synchronization correlating with greater reported enjoyment. Similar synchronization occurs between therapists and clients, between romantic partners, and even among strangers engaged in cooperative tasks. This physiological synchronization represents a fundamental social bonding mechanism, notes Dr. Chun. When your physiological patterns align with another person, you literally come into rhythm with them at a biological level. This creates feelings of connection and understanding that transcend verbal communication. This synchronization capability likely explains the mysterious phenomenon of vibes or energy that many people report sensing from others or in certain environments. While often described in metaphysical terms, these experiences may represent the detection of collective physiological and behavioral patterns that create coherent fields of human activity. When people describe a room having good energy or bad energy, they're often unconsciously detecting the collective emotional state and physiological synchronization of the people in that environment, explains Dr. Brenner. Tense people in a space create different behavioral and physiological patterns than relaxed, happy people. Differences your social perception system detects, even when you cannot consciously articulate what feels off about a situation. This social sensing capability reaches its most sophisticated expression in what psychologists call mentalizing or theory of mind, the ability to attribute mental states to others and predict their behavior based on inferred beliefs, desires, and intentions. This capacity emerges in humans around age 4 and continues developing into adulthood, allowing increasingly sophisticated social navigation. What makes human social cognition extraordinary is not just detecting others' current states, but predicting their future actions based on models of their mental processes, explains Dr. Reynolds. Your brain continuously simulates others' minds, running sophisticated predictive models of how they might think, feel, and behave in various scenarios. The neural basis for this predictive social intelligence involves multiple brain regions working in concert, particularly the temporoparietal junction, medial prefrontal cortex, and posterior superior temporal sulcus. These regions integrate multiple streams of social information to create dynamic models of others' minds, models that continuously update based on new behavioral evidence. When someone reads another person well or demonstrates exceptional social intelligence, they're effectively using these neural systems with greater precision and sophistication, notes Dr. Brenner. Some people naturally attend more closely to social signals that others miss, allowing them to predict behavior with remarkable accuracy. These discoveries about human social perception fundamentally change how we understand interpersonal dynamics. Far from being limited to conscious verbal exchange, human social interactions involve complex, multilayered signaling systems operating largely beneath awareness, systems that connect us to others in ways more sophisticated than most people ever realize. As we have explored the expanded landscape of human sensory capabilities, a profound truth emerges. We are not the sensory-limited creatures we have been led to believe. Rather, we possess an extraordinary array of perceptual systems, evolutionary gifts that connect us to our environment and to each other in ways that transcend conscious awareness. From detecting Earth's magnetic field to sensing infrared radiation, from unconsciously monitoring others' physiological states to anticipating environmental threats before they manifest, humans carry remarkable perceptual equipment largely ignored by modern education and culture. The tragedy of modern human experience is not that we lack extraordinary sensory capabilities, but that we have forgotten how to recognize and trust them, reflects Dr. Brenner. We have been taught to dismiss gut feelings, ignore intuitions, and discount embodied knowledge in favor of purely rational, conscious cognition. This diminishment of our sensory heritage carries real consequences. By privileging conscious reasoning and technological extension over our innate perceptual systems, we have created a profound disconnect from both our evolutionary design and the natural world that shaped us. Dr. Blackwell notes, throughout most of human history, people maintained intimate awareness of their expanded sensory capabilities. Indigenous cultures worldwide recognize and cultivate these capacities through practices modern societies have largely abandoned. The result is a kind of sensory amnesia. We possess extraordinary perceptual equipment we've forgotten how to use. This sensory amnesia manifests in contemporary life as anxiety, disconnection from nature, interpersonal difficulties, and reduced situational awareness. Having lost touch with our full perceptual capabilities, we find ourselves increasingly dependent on technological substitutes that provide inferior versions of what our bodies already offer. Consider how many people rely on weather apps rather than developing sensitivity to atmospheric changes, or use dating algorithms instead of trusting their own assessment of potential partners, observes Dr. Parrish. We've outsourced capabilities that were once considered fundamental aspects of human experience. Yet research suggests these dormant capacities remain accessible. Multiple studies have demonstrated that specific training can enhance proprioception, interoception, subtle energy detection, and other hidden sensory abilities. From the heightened spatial awareness of experienced dancers to the refined taste perception of master sommeliers, human sensory potential responds dramatically to focused attention and practice. What's exciting about this field is the growing evidence that these perceptual capabilities aren't fixed but trainable, explains Dr. Reynolds. Just as you can strengthen a muscle through consistent use, you can enhance sensory sensitivity through deliberate practice. The neural architecture remains available. It simply requires activation and development. This perspective offers a hopeful counterpoint to technological determinism. Rather than surrendering ever more of our perceptual functions to digital devices, we might instead reclaim and develop our innate sensory heritage, reawakening capabilities that connect us more deeply to our bodies, to each other, and to the natural world. Practical approaches to sensory reclamation include mindfulness practices that enhance interoceptive awareness, nature immersion that reawakens environmental sensitivity, and interpersonal exercises that sharpen social perception. Research shows that even short periods of technology disconnection can measurably enhance sensory acuity and attention to subtle perceptual signals. The most important first step is simply recognition, acknowledging that these expanded sensory capabilities exist and merit attention, advises Dr. Brenner. Once people understand that gut feelings, intuitions, and subtle perceptions aren't imaginary but represent sophisticated evolutionary systems operating beneath consciousness, they naturally begin paying more attention to these signals. This renewed attention to our full sensory spectrum offers benefits beyond individual well-being. As humanity faces unprecedented environmental and social challenges, reconnecting with our expanded perceptual capabilities may prove essential for sustainable adaptation. Indigenous knowledge systems that maintained sophisticated awareness of ecological patterns and natural cycles weren't primitive superstitions, but sophisticated perceptual traditions, notes Dr. Martinez. These traditions recognized sensory capabilities modern science is only now rediscovering, capabilities that may prove crucial for navigating an increasingly unstable climate and fragile biosphere. Similarly, enhanced social perception offers potential remedies for the isolation and polarization that characterize contemporary society. By developing greater sensitivity to subtle interpersonal signals and physiological synchronization, we might rebuild connective tissue between increasingly fragmented social groups. The human nervous system evolved for connection with other humans, with other species, and with the broader environment, explains Dr. Chun. When we operate in alignment with this design, using our full sensory capabilities, we naturally experience greater well-being and make decisions more aligned with both individual and collective flourishing. As we stand at the intersection of accelerating technological development and growing ecological crisis, reclaiming our evolutionary sensory heritage offers a middle path, neither rejecting technological advancement nor surrendering our biological birthright. By integrating both technological and biological intelligence, we might create a more balanced relationship with both our tools and our evolutionary design. The most sophisticated technology we'll ever encounter isn't smartphones or artificial intelligence, concludes Dr. Blackwell. It's the extraordinary sensory equipment we already carry, evolutionary technology refined across hundreds of millions of years to connect us with reality in ways we've only begun to understand. Perhaps the greatest adventure of the 21st century lies not in exploring outer space or cyberspace, but in rediscovering inner space, the remarkable terrain of human perception that remains largely unmapped despite existing within each of us. By reclaiming our full sensory heritage, we might rediscover what it truly means to be human in a world that increasingly pulls us away from our evolutionary design. We are not merely thinking creatures who occasionally sense the world, but sensing beings who sometimes think, carriers of perceptual wisdom that reaches back through the entire vertebrate lineage and connects us to the living planet that shaped us. In every unexplained intuition, every inexplicable knowing, every mysterious connection, we glimpse not supernatural powers but our natural inheritance, the extraordinary sensory capabilities that make us fully human.